And good evening, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and good evening to our three guests tonight, Amber, Carol M., and Tara. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, John. So good to see you.
Doing
Thank you,
wonderful.
Carol.
Yeah, it's always fun to be on your channel, John.
Thank
It's
you.
a, it's a,
Yes.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
pleasure and an honor.
Oh, thank you so much. And you're doing well, Carol, I hope?
Oh yeah, I'm happy. I'm doing
Good,
well.
good. Well,
I'm
since we last talked, I want you to know that I went out and bought some little plastic starter things for my seeds. And I got an indoor grow light, just a little small one. And so I actually now have got some seeds from last year that have actually sprouted. And there's little sweet red peppers that are coming up. And I just started some carrots. And so, I mean, I'm kind of excited that I could actually do this thing now. I'm still probably going to crash and burn because I just don't have good luck at this stuff. But I just wanted you to let you know that I'm with the program, self-sufficiency plus nutrition.
hmm
That's a double win, and I really, Marcia and I are quite serious about getting started with some gardening this year and grow our own veggies and thinking about potatoes and stuff too. So I don't want to make this a gardening show tonight, but I did want you guys to know that I made a little bit of progress. What do you think?
Good.
Oh, congratulations! It
Trial
also
and
feels
error.
it feels so great to eat food that you grew too. It feels super satisfying, even if it's got holes in it or something. It still tastes better.
What I found and what's I and a lot of my friends and family, we're comfort food people. And if we're not growing our own food, we're liable to grab whatever's around and eat it just to satiate us, especially if there's stress or tension or even when you're tired. There's something comforting about food. And so we always have to like have a garden so that, I don't have to go to the grocery store to get something to then have something healthy. And it's really like people, I know we fall into those habits and patterns, and having a garden helps to jerk us out of it. So, that's exciting that you got a garden and you and your wife are really, getting into it.
Well, I am. Honestly, I need to see her get her hands dirty a few times before I'm convinced that she's with the program. But if I could just get her to carry the watering can around now and then and just wave it over the plants. All right,
Well,
I'm teasing drummer now. I shouldn't do that on the air. She has she will.
she's great. She's great.
Oh God, she's wonderful. And so, well,
She
now,
can play the drums as you're working in the garden
Yeah.
to keep
yeah,
the rhythm and the
And what
beat.
about cooking the food? Somebody's
yeah.
got to
Yeah,
cook it.
yeah.
Well, I like the idea of getting some rhythm going out there, and maybe get a nice African rhythm going while I'm planting my seeds and doing my trimming. That's a good idea. She needs a new direction. She's just retired. It's been rather well. It's a big change, and it's rather shocking sometimes when things don't that you think you're going to be able to get, you don't get them, and it's like, oh, it's
Well,
frustrating, but at the same time, the whole idea of being done with your career is such a relief. So it's so good, and I don't think she's really understood yet that this is like getting out of jail. To me, it's like freedom. Finally, I don't care if I don't have any money. Just don't make me do that same thing over and over and over again every day for the rest of my life. Oh, I am
and
so glad that
remember,
I've been
John,
able to get out of it.
if she plays drums for you, you can also play any music for your plants. And they love classical music, they love drums. And I'm telling you, they grow and you can actually see your plants move sometimes where they move to the rhythm. Like they love it. They love music. So I think that's
What's
a
a good
great idea.
song? What's a good song for Sweet Peppers?
Well, I don't know. Always start off my plants as seedlings with Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then I moved from that to Vivaldi, especially during the day when it's bright and sunny.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then, if it's evening, it's just like a slow drum or like a solid beat. you know, and you can just try all kinds of different things and see how the
Incline
leaves
night
do.
music. Yeah, a little night music. You know?
Yeah, watch them because the leaves will like, you know, that they move. It's plants are so amazing.
Well,
The-
I'd like to plug an instrument. I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have a new motto. It's called More Cuica. Do you guys know anything about Cuica?
no.
No, I
No.
didn't either. I didn't either. So okay, if you ever listen to samba, there's this little like gorilla noise or monkey noise. He's like hoo 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 hoo
Oh
hoo
yeah,
hoo. Yeah, so that's a cuica
yeah.
because I just love samba that has a cuica. So I looked it up and it's kind of like this drum and they poke a hole in it and you have a stick and you kind of like rub it through the thing at different angles and kind of makes like between people singing, ladies singing, or monkeys or gorillas. And if anybody ever heard, you know, that kind of Brazilian samba type music,
So it would sound great with drums.
yeah,
I know that
Oh yeah.
instrument, and
And then one of the little rain makers.
yeah,
Yeah, those are fun.
Nice.
well, a long time ago, when I was just a little boy, the ice cream truck would come around the neighborhood, and sometimes they would have these things that were called, I think they were called push-ups, and it was like a cylinder with the with a stick up, and you pushed it up through it, and that's the way this Cuica works. As you push it up and through, the bottom part slides into the hole, and because the length of the tube changes, it gives you different pitches as you pull it in and out. So it gives you
So
that
like
kind
the
of a
orange
thing.
so
creamsicle. Is it the
you
orange
can make a
creamsicle
mini
push
one
up?
at the ice cream man.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
Carol, did you have those push-up things when you were going to the ice cream man in your
Well,
neighborhood?
I seem to recall something like that, but not from the ice cream man. No, I don't remember push up.
Orange creamsicle that it was like an
Yeah,
orange
I remember
flavor.
the ice cream sandwiches and the sort of weird colored things, but not that Cuica thing. But it sounds like a great instrument, and I'm sure your plants would love it. One thing I wanted to say about music and plants is there's many studies that have been done that say plants like almost all kinds of music except heavy metal, or maybe it was and heavy metal. I don't know, but there's certain musics they like
No,
better than others,
no
and
worries. No worries here.
yeah, okay. But that it does make an effect on to how
Yeah.
productive they are. I haven't really tried it myself, but
My
I
favorite
think
is 70s slow rock, but I've never tried it for my plants, but I'm going to because
mhm.
I love that slow ballad 70s
Yeah.
music because I used to hear my mom sing it and I just remember moments of my mom and growing up. So that's one of my favorites and I bet the garden would like that because some of those songs were really great.
Okay. Well, I'm just basically hoping to remember to give it water and keep the roots covered, and basic stuff. But all right, I'm excited, and it's January 24th already, and
Yep.
we haven't had any really bad weather at all. It's
No
been
snow? Did you
not
get
for us. No, we haven't had any
really?
snow.
We
Um,
just woke up
Wonderful.
today to just like, you know, when all the trees just have the layers of it and it's just so gorgeous. But honestly, like the sun peaked out today. We have not seen the sun really all year.
that's
Wow. I'm seeing crocuses. I'm seeing things starting to peak up a little bit, and that's always a wonderful sight to see because this light is coming back and the warmth is coming back, and that makes me really happy to get those little signs. Even though it's early here, I wouldn't be planting or starting things quite yet, but for my climate,
Oh,
We've had
peach tree has blossomed.
thunderstorms.
I have
We haven't
blossomed
had
in front
snow.
of
I
the peach
wish.
tree. Little bitty buds on my peach tree already.
Nice.
oh, the peach tree. That is so southern of you.
We haven't had
Um,
any snow, I wish, but we've
Yeah.
had thunderstorms and a few tornado warnings, but no snow. I hope we get snow though.
Well,
I
I wanted to
thought
tell
it
about
was
one tradition. It's very simple. I forgot to mention it all the time, but we always put our Christmas tree out, and this year there's two because of a different relative, and then sprinkle birdseed on it all the time. So the birds and the squirrels, they have such a nice little place to go and like hang out and get the little food off the branches.
I like to watch the squirrels, but the dogs hate the squirrels. I mean, they will not tolerate
Squirrel!
at all. No, it's like no squirrels, and that's the rule.
Do they bark at them when you
Oh,
are taking them for a walk?
oh, you bet, man.
My dog doesn't care about squirrels, but crows. Now he'll go after crows or seagulls and have a lot of fun with them. But he just walks right by squirrels. It's interesting. They have different instincts, I guess.
Well, anybody want to talk about anything serious? I'm open for
I,
anything.
I was wondering if Amber knew anything about the recent Antifa action in Atlanta.
Yes. What do you want to know? It's it's shameful, mostly because it's under false pretense. So if somebody or if a group says, "Hey, we're doing this," and there's an actual purpose, and it's followed through with an actual action, and people are following protocol as protesting, and it's effective, and it's totally expressing your dissatisfaction, then I'm all for it, right? That's our right. But when it's used under false pretense, and then the reason why they're doing it doesn't make sense. So forever, Atlanta's had the most progressive police force. So we have over 65% Black officers and 12% on top of that, either dating or married to a Black person. And so anyone telling us our officers are racist or have an issue, they don't know Atlanta, number one. And then number two, they said, and Obama said that we had the most progressive police force. And if he were going to have anyone look at a template of how officers behave, it would be Atlanta officers and the training that they received. Well, still, they listened to what Antifa said and all these people were saying. So they were going to move from doing guns in more of a militarized way to more jujitsu and more grappling without using weapons. They're studying de-escalation, but they were in a building they've been renting for over 30 years that has Legionnaire's disease. So they said, you know what, we're going to build a training facility. So citizens gave money, and it's for the EMTs, fire, police, and sheriff. So they can all work together. They're even doing it where they do natural gardens, native plantings, trails, and hikes in this whole area. Well, all of a sudden, people from all over the United States, not from Atlanta, started coming in, getting all this equipment shipped to them. They built tree houses, and they were saying, you're tearing down our woods. You don't care about the tree canopy. The only thing is that area has been cut down multiple times. It used to be a prison farm. It used to be a shooting range. It used to be a big building that they tore down. So these are all new growth trees, and there's not even really any fancy loblolly pine. It's a lot of trees that have just kind of grown up. There's no old oaks. So anything that's going to be cut down is going to have native plantings, blackberries, blueberry, like all kinds of really amazing things. And it's going to be taken care of better than it had been. And they were saying no to Cop City. My bigger issue is, don't we want community policing so that they don't get federalized? So we don't have UN officials coming in. So we don't have a bigger, like our officers have to wear cameras 24/7. They can't, not be recorded. And anything that happens, we get to call their supervisor. We get to, push back. And, there can be legal action taken. If our community police is gone, then we're having to count on groups of people who are not held accountable, right? So we're trying to get that through to the more progressive side that just gets all inflamed, and they're not seeing the forest from the trees, pun intended. So yes, that's what happened. But what I found interesting is one of the main guys that was there, he's from Kennebunkport, Maine. I wonder what really important family lives in Kennebunkport, Maine, or visits there often. So anyway, it's very interesting, and I'm looking into each person, where they're from, and you're finding like these are kids from very, 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 very wealthy families, like very wealthy families. These are not kids that, are disenfranchised or have any beef. Like they've literally been spoiled their whole life, and their parents are very well aware. These are some senators' kids, former presidents. Like, you just have a lot of people that are in there that have lots of significant ties. And so they want out of jail, but our DA is being strict because they're like, look, we're doing everything you guys are asking. And apparently they're getting paid, but they won't say who's paying them. So it's a big thing, but that's all I know so far.
Fascinating. What about the burning police car?
Oh, yeah, that was this last weekend. It was a small group, thank goodness. And it was pretty quick, thank goodness. They arrested, I think, 6 of them. And they're just waiting for their day in court. Some of them may already be out. I think it was more hyped up because I would say the event in California was bigger. But I think it fits a narrative, and that's what we can see is coming in the future. They're trying to get momentum again, and so they're making the story out to be much bigger because yes, there was damage, and they ran and threw bricks through bank windows, and I got a lot of pictures and went and took a photographer that does, like, he's a big supporter of our firemen, and he takes a lot of pictures because we've got a group that gives the homeless in this wood line by a lot of neighborhoods. They give them kerosene and then they catch on fire all the time. So he's trying to, because they close down homeless shelters. So you've got just like these plans of just debilitating cities. And so one of my friends takes pictures to let people know this doesn't make any sense. So you shut down homeless shelters, you make it impossible for them to go into it. Then you allow like them to hunker down in woods that are in neighborhoods that if one area catches fire, it could catch a whole line of people on fire, interstate systems on fire because it's underneath interstate areas, and people are going to give them kerosene. And this same guy I took with me, and he got pictures and I got pictures, but I would say it was insignificant. Like out of all of the attacks, it was one of the smallest. But I think they wanted to make it big, which tells me a lot about what they're planning or what they're trying to amp up. Because if anything, I think the media should have concentrated more on what was happening in California. But that's just my take.
Well, Democracy Now! I noticed when I was looking up something about it, they came into the feed and they were like, forest defender gets shot, and I had already seen that there was open firing at the police. It's like that's not a forest defender, and what you're saying too. It's not like you're just average homeless people. These are operatives.
Yeah, and they were throwing for like this is the citizens have been very upset about this because we all donated money for the facility because they were going to be training correctly. It was going to be demilitarizing, de-escalation classes, like all these things that were being pushed. Community policing, doing activities, inviting the community, like having officers live within the community, like all of this stuff that everyone had been asking for. But for 8 months, our officers have been very patient. The construction sites, they've stolen equipment. They've like lobbed Molotov cocktails. This one worker came and he had just gotten a truck. It had all his equipment on it. And he drove in and they scared him. He jumped out of the truck. They turned it over, caught it on fire. And they hadn't been arrested, none of them. And they just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And then finally, when the officers were just going to go and clear the area, one of the guys just pulled out his gun, shot him. And then the officer's still in the ICU. And they shot back in the tent. He died, and now he's the forest defender that was attacked. And they're saying, no, that officer was shot by friendly fire. But they have 24-hour body cameras, and it shows the whole thing, right? And so now people are putting their foot in their mouth, and they're going around saying all this stuff, but they haven't seen the body camera footage. So they think that nobody else is going to see it, but it's already made its rounds to Atlantans, so we know it wasn't friendly fire, and it wasn't any of that other stuff.
That's awesome reporting, Amber. Thank you, and Tara. One of the things that what you said reminded me of is Catherine Austin Fitts and her reporting on the destruction of inner city neighborhoods in order to bring in urban renewal. And that, I think, is the story in San Francisco, Los Angeles, where we see these television pictures. They wouldn't be putting them all over the news if they didn't want everybody to know that, hey, look what a mess this is. Don't invest here, Don't think about opening, that restaurant here in Beverly Hills or wherever it is, Hollywood, because it's all going down, folks. It's all going down. And then, she explains that a federal program will come along, urban renewal, and we're
Mhm.
gonna fix this place up, and it's going to be beautiful, and it is. I was hearing about a place up in I think Brooklyn that has just had the same type of a turnaround, where it's, instead of old docky, warehouse things, now there's beautiful condominiums, and but the developers, oh my God, didn't they make some money? Because the place was worthless, and then you come in and you, by hook or by crook, you can find a way to get the zoning changed and to be able to do all this amazing building, and that, to me, that's the elite uh, showing off. Look what we can do. We're gonna dazzle you with this, but and of course make a bundle doing it. In in that sense, it's tragic because you can almost see it happening. And the other thing that occurs to me when you mention Kennebunkport and that connection with that certain famous family is, wasn't it John Hinckley that was known to the Neil Mallon, uh, one of the brother or brother-in-law of George W. Bush, the one that assassinated or tried to assassinate Reagan, I think. And
Whoa.
so, another son of a close family friend of the Bushes.
Yes, a
Um,
coincidence, I'm sure.
I think another close family friend of the Bushes, yeah, John Lennon. Got John Lennon. Is that who you meant, Hinckley?
Maybe that's who I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, he Yeah, he shot John Lennon. That's what
What
he
was the
did.
assassin's name?
Hinckley.
That was Hinckley. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Assassin. Wrong victim. Yeah. Killing John Lennon. My God.
yeah.
I, I
Music.
I think there's a bunch of people looking at independent reporters like Catherine Austin Fitz, and a lot of those like George and you and Mark that actually are bringing information that apparently our actual mainstream media can't. And I was just watching this guy who's going around San Francisco and parts of California and some of these other states that are giving out free drug paraphernalia. And how he's doing it is he's going to these areas that say, we're here to help you with your addiction, right? And he goes in and he says, I have an addiction. I need help. I need someone to help me get off of, keep me from being addicted. I need help for this. And they'll give him a box of needles, tie offs, a Narcon, like all these things in order for him to keep doing drugs. And then he'll show everybody what he just received. And then he'll say, well, where do I go to actually get help so I don't do the drugs? And no one that works there knows where to tell him to go, even though that they state that's what they're there for. So they're getting government money and they're stating something like, hey, we're here to help you not have this addiction. And then at the exact same time, they're giving out the paraphernalia that causes the addiction. And he's documenting it. And I'll play it on Protecting the Nest this Friday, Carol and Tara, because it's fascinating that I guess they assumed that if they just shut the mainstream media up, that real people wouldn't get out there with their
Wow.
feet to the pavement and record it. So I think it's great. And anytime you get that feeling and you are wherever you are in your local government and you say something's not right, just go and ask a question, like record it, document it, and share it. Because I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to know, their plans for us. We pay taxes, and it's supposed to be a representative government. We're in a constitutional republic, and I think the biggest thing is we've given our power away. We need to take it back. And since they're not going to give us the news, we need to give each other the news. And I think it's imperative. And I'm so glad for all of those people who have actually started it and given us the template, because it's so
Well,
important right now.
even if they don't give them the actual fentanyl, they give them methadone, which is really just the same thing, and it's a control. It's legal, and so different people make money from it. The pharmaceutical companies, instead of the CIA or whoever brought in all this other stuff. I don't know. It's just a horrible situation that's gotten so out of whack. But I had a different um, thing to bring up tonight, that a sort of a left turn, a really different space in doing some of the work that I'm digging into with the show for Corky tomorrow, I found this kind of serendipity with each of you in names and places, and so it was kind of fun. I was just digging into that a little bit today, and one of them, well, I was looking at linear, which works with, it's a natural nuclear reaction that happens like ball lightning, and it can generate electricity once you get it going. So that's just a real quick thing about what it is. But there's lots of evidence all over the world that these reactions have been for a long time, and it's been hidden from us, really, how to make this happen. And one of the places is Ireland, John. And where I lived in Ireland was County Meath, and one of the places was Tara, was the name of the place, and it was a dinky little town, but it was where the kings of Tara had lived, and there was this megalithic monument, really, that was under the ground called a cairn that we could walk to from where we stayed, and it was like Stonehenge, only it was under the ground. It was mounded, and the mound was still there, but you could go in. It wasn't open. It has since been excavated and stuff. So it's this really interesting place that the light comes in. But what I didn't realize until I looked at it again is it would there were ways from the standing stones that lit up from ball lightning. There's tracks that happen that look exactly like in this the reactions that the scientists are doing now. So you can imagine these standing stones out in the field all lighting up. How magical, and how that might have looked like fairies. But then I looked into, well, what about County Kerry? And there were tons of them, John, and it goes back. That's the earliest place where there's all these tracks 7,000 years ago in, right where your family came from, that show that they had some knowledge of how to make this reaction happen. And maybe, I don't know, you can imagine that it would have been a spectacle. Was it the fairies and all? It would have looked like that, all these little ball lightnings being created. Anyway, Tara is also the place in Georgia, from the movie Gone with the Wind. And I was thinking of you, Amber, and I've read this book that's kind of from the same time that I've talked about in the past. This is a really old book of, it's called the Oralinda. And there's a woman in here who, this goes back in the same timeline, thousands of years ago. And there's a woman named Freya, and she was the keeper. This is supposed to be an actual real story, but she has the keeper of the laws and the keeper of freedom. And she was a fighter for freedom. And this is what reminds me of you, what you're doing now. It said, sensible Frida. The first lesson she taught her children was self-control, and the second was the love of virtue. And when they were grown, she taught them the value of liberty, for she said, without liberty, all other virtues serve to make you slaves and to disgrace your origin. So that idea of dignity, was really important to this same time frame of what we were talking about, what was going on in Ireland. And we've talked about these sort of legal structures, John, and this is evidence that there were legal structures tied to places way back in like the Homeric time. So this is so interesting. But what her text was that she gave to her adults was that it's the golden rule. It starts with the golden rule that, there is this, they called it Wiralda, which was this big presence. And you could ask Wiralda, to help you. But the caution was to be self-sufficient and only do that when you really need to. And then as you see, you are assisted by this great source. Then you have to also assist your neighbor. So do likewise to your neighbor is the actual language. Um, and not to expect anything from that. That this is the ethics of you do something because it's the right thing to do. So that becomes one of the laws, and that four things are given for your enjoyment: air, water, land, and fire. But Waralda is the sole possessor of them. Um, so choose upright men who will fairly divide the labor and the fruits, so no man shall be exempt from work or from the duty of defense.
Okay,
And then
Carol,
they,
I'm going to stop you because when you turn the page, you're striking the microphone and it's
oh,
causing noise.
sorry. Okay.
So anyway,
It's
that's
the true sound of book. The book.
Yeah, but
yeah.
this is
Hold the cover of the book back up. I want to see if you
okay.
can.
And it's a language too that is derived. It looks like runes,
Those are
but
runes for sure.
yeah, but it's derived from something called a jewel. And a jewel is this six-sided circle. I don't know if you can see this,
Oh boy.
but it's this language is kind of like Phoenician, and it's got it goes way back in time. So this is, we're talking 4,000 years ago here, that these laws and language, and there was script, and then this printed language that it was written in, and then it was translated into Dutch, I guess, in the 1200 was when it was a manuscript that had been passed down from family to family. And I don't know for sure if it's a real story or not. I tried to look into it, but it's a wonderful thought that it talked about the freedom of men and women together to choose to be enjoined, but that they were all given a house when they got married. So that's an interesting idea, that when people come of age, the society gives them a house. So
That's
you
like
don't.
the old barn raisings that they used to do in early America, where, a newlywed couple would come and all of the men and women would go. The women would cook and make the food, and the men would barn raise. But then when you said that about liberty, I mean, it's so basic and so important that people understand why liberty is so important. Since we all serve a certain purpose, we have a different fingerprint. We actually all have a different talent, and we have something to give. But if we don't have liberty to do so, then we all are not living to our full potential, and we're not really gaining as much as we would when we allow liberty. When you allow liberty, yes, there can be issues. Some people take too much liberty that affects others or hurts others. But when you subtract liberty and you take that away, you're taking away the possibilities that are endless because of the amazingness that we were created to be. And since we all have something to add to this big pot of amazing, life that we live, without liberty, we're all put in a very ordered fashion. And that's why having like a one world government or a second Babylon or whatever you want to call it is so dangerous, because there's not sovereignty. No one gets to celebrate their weddings in their traditional garb. No one gets to do their dances that go back into their culture. And these are beautiful things. And in order to say where I come from is beautiful, you have to allow that somewhere else, no matter what your dogma is. The reason why it's so important for you to allow someone else's dogma, as long as it doesn't impede in yours, is so that you have yours, and liberty allows that. So, I mean, I think it's one of the most beautiful things that was promised us, that looks to be our elected officials are slacking on: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we can't do without those three. And we should do everything in our power to remind them of that every day.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Well, they
I
talk about.
I like the idea of a natural right to liberty, and I think that's what Dolores Cahill is all about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of notion is at, that's where our hope is for that type of freedom. But we do have so many competing interests right now that we have to have a little bit more than that in order to secure our liberty, other than just the decision or the goodwill or the, hey, let's revert to the ancient
Mm-hmm.
rules, because the ancient rules would be great if everybody would obey them. But that's the paradox of power, and the paradox of greed, the paradox of fear. That I think, and fear is, and they themselves studied it at McGill under Cameron, that the most motivating factor in human life is fear. And they know that for sure. So that's why they keep us afraid all the time, so that we are willing to do what we're told and give up our liberty in favor of doing what we're told. That is a psyop that has been played upon us for our entire lives. And it's hard to see past it, but you guys see past it. I see past it, and I think that people that pay attention to what we're saying uh, are going to be convinced that, hey, we're not the crazy ones. The crazy ones
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that go around and wear hats that say obey on them, and just do whatever they're told. Join the Masons because then you can be part of a thing, or join this, or participate in a violent act, as you were talking about, Amber. Um, that's extremely counterproductive, to say the least. That's exactly what they want. They're looking for the ones that they can seduce into a violent act, because then they own you. Then they own you,
Well,
And
there's no truth, and it's all trickery. And as we found, the school play is what creates the fear, and it's the pandemic is of the propaganda, and that's what is being revealed right now. But one of these other ancient laws that I really like, John, and I think you're right, it is the basis of what Dolores Cahill was talking about. But that one of the laws is that you have to be able to, well, in those days, write them on the walls, is what she said. But it means they have to be simple. And so you can't have all the trickery. A lot of this trickery is to get us to think other people have to make these decisions, that we can't figure it out. So we had to keep the laws simple, that it doesn't allow trickery. And this idea of finding the truth has somehow been uh, turned into denialism.
it
Asking
goes in.
questions is denialism.
It ties into a lot of what I've been working on, as far as the law is concerned, and I've kind of turned my attention to the law after studying Alan Dulles enough, and realizing,
Mhm.
his and his brother John Foster Dulles, they shaped the 20th century. They shaped everything, as far as the disasters, the wars, and the corporate greed, the corporate takeovers, and creating these monster corporations that control so much. And one of the parts that is so amazing is, you see how they manipulate the law. And two examples came to mind. I mean, just in what I've been doing, like I'm reading the law unto itself on Mondays, and today I did a minefields on the same subject. And the, the idea of public health has always been local. It's always been state controlled. It's always been, that was the founding fathers would have never ever considered passing a public health law for the federal government. It just would have never been done, because everybody understood that the best health authority was the ones that were in the local area. If somebody got sick, then the neighborhood knows it, And, some authority will say, hey, you better stay home for a couple weeks so you don't make the rest of us sick. And everybody understands, and it's done. Or even on a larger level, like a state level, there might be like to keep ships from landing that have been in the tropics, for instance. If there's rumors of a disease, the state might say no, but the federal government had nothing to do with it. That
Yeah, it's
that
crazy.
slippery slope was climbed up by law firms like Sullivan and Cromwell for the big corporations and the big interests that wanted to control us, control everything. And so the way they chose to get control of us was through public health. And now, they started the public health service. They started they federalized the ports. Ports used to belong to the states, but the federal government kind of just federalized them or bought them out. Then they created the internal revenue. I mean the taxation people, the port authorities. All that's run out of the federal government now, and everything that has to do with quarantine became federalized, and that all that pressure comes from business because business wants to know when does my ship land. They don't want to have some bureaucrat in Baltimore telling them their ship has to stay 5 miles offshore. So the power comes in and they say, federal government, help, help, help. Here's a bunch of money. I'll vote for you. And so, politics being the way it is, and they playing the long game, eventually created, the Surgeon General, the whole federal office, and Congress passed some laws, and the Supreme Court approved of them, and now they've gone the next step, which is to not only to have the federal government running it like the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare used to be, and then it was HHS, and then now it's the dreaded Sicherheitsdienst, the human, what is it called?
Health
The
and Human
no
Services or
no
something.
no the
CDC.
no
All them scumbags.
what's the agency? The oh gosh,
I'm
somebody
like,
tell me.
which one? There's just like, oh, it's
And
just
that's
so,
the point because
it's
there's
so
so
overly
many.
There's
bloated.
so
It's like
many, and there's the
bloated.
WHO on top of all that
Yeah,
now.
And
it's just
what
like layers and layers of stuff that makes no sense. No wonder you get confused, because it's just like
Yeah,
it's like almost like the federal agency is the synthetic state.
we got
You
it.
know,
It's the Department of Homeland Security. Thank you,
Oh,
Freedom
right.
123. My brain was just
Hmm.
could calling it up. The Department of Homeland Security now has the power to take over all of these, all the states, everything, whenever there's a declaration of a certain emergency. But what's worse now is that the Department of Defense and the bioweapons people are now intimately involved in the public health decisions. And so, if it seemed like our response to COVID was kind of militarized, it was. This is not a public health service event. This is a DoD production. And that's been emphasized in a number of people's shows recently, how all of this, appears to have been run out of the Defense Department. So our public health, not only has it been taken away from our local doctors, our local community, our local government, taken away from the states, given to the Congress and the federal government, the executive branches, and then created huge bureaucracies. Not to mention the interplay with all the health insurance companies. It's basically now if you get to be my age, you have to pretty much sign up for the government run type plans. And anyway, the point is it's all been federalized, and that federalization has been militarized. And so our health program, the programs of our national health authorities is now military. And
Well, the
that,
next step, John, is that the military has been privatized, and that's happened too. So it's it's all mercenaries, and the mercenaries are now the pharmaceutical companies are part of that privatization of the military. So
uh,
yeah,
so
yeah, Amber, you're quiet. We can't hear you, but it
Amber, have we lost your mic? I can't hear Amber say so. I mean,
can't
Tara.
hear you.
Oh, Tara, your mic is off.
Yeah, but Amber,
I'm trying to tell Amber she's muted. No, can't hear you.
Amber, are you muted?
What happened to Amber's voice?
she turned it off and on. It's still muted.
She got virtual laryngitis.
Did it get unplugged or something? Now you are muted. You are muted now. Now you can't hear you.
Maybe it got unplugged. Well, I'll just throw in there real quick the Bureau of Indian Affairs. That goes way back to some BS where they're like, "We're gonna come represent you," but really, what were they doing? Just making sure they didn't get too powerful. I mean, who knows? Their tricks are all the same. They just wind back.
Well, you mentioned a very good example. The BIA has been corrupt from 100 years, from when it started. It is a place where corrupt people went to loot the resources of the native peoples in their reservations. So not only did they take all of the natural land, put them in a reservation. Then within that reservation, they were just making deals, and that's where people like Rockefeller come in and get underground mineral rights for 10 cents on the acre, and the Indians, they don't know. It's that kind of thing. You read about that with when you study Nelson Rockefeller himself and how he went out west with a specific purpose of just ripping off the Indian tribes, all the time, telling them, about Christianity and how great God is. But, and, and, there's just these heartbreaking stories of the Indian leaders who really liked Nelson Rockefeller, really thought he was a great guy. And, they would send him a Christmas card or stuff like that. And and one time he wrote him a letter, said, our tribe would really, really, I hate to ask for any help, but could you possibly do something, because we're really just we're out of all the essentials. And Rockefeller wrote back. He said he's sorry he couldn't do anything about it, and he's sure things would turn up for you in the future. That kind of relationship. It just when you read these stories about these people, you realize that they have kind of left the planet, as far as I'm concerned. They don't understand anything about what it's like to be human. I mean, I would even go further than that. I'd say they don't even understand what it's like to be a mammal. You know, because I love my dogs, right? And my dogs love me, and there's no question about that. It's absolutely certain. We don't have to have a discussion about it. We don't have to sign a contract. It's like a naturalist thing in the world, and among people, the same thing. And I don't care what or another look like, or how tall you are, or who your parents are. There's no reason why we can't be friends. There's no reason why we can't love each other. And yet these people that have these driven ambitions to own the entire planet by any means necessary, those people, I just don't understand it. But we have to confront it. And that is really the hard part, because nobody wants to believe that anybody could be that evil. Nobody wants to believe that there really is, the evil Mr. Burns in the running the nuclear plant, and nobody wants to believe it. Amber, are you back yet?
Looks like it. No,
No.
can't hear you.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
so weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Could you do it on your phone? Can you get through from your phone on the link?
why don't you go away and come back if you don't mind?
Yeah, that might work.
Sometimes that works.
Well,
Anyway.
John, one of the things that was, has been since antiquity is the idea that money lenders and usury is outlawed.
Right.
So it's happened before many times, and then they keep coming back and back and back. But this idea that all the money goes from the poor people up to the rich people, we have to do a better distribution. It's become so ridiculous right now with, you have to walk over people that are addicted in your own neighborhoods. It's just so wrong. The dignity has been removed from being a human on our level, and it's time to take it back. I mean,
usury is a big part of it, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. And I'll bring Amber in, but let me just, since we're on that point, traditionally, as you said, usury was a crime. Usury was shamed. Usury was not permitted, and for very good reasons that we see right now when we're carrying a $30 trillion national debt, because it's all made out of interest, and that charging of interest for the loaning of money is usury. It doesn't matter whether it's 1% or 200%, or whether it's the mafia or the Catholic Church. If you're charging interest, you're committing usury according to the old ideas. Now, since then, we say, well, usury is only charging over what, 15% or whatever. There's laws about it. But that's not the idea. The idea is anytime that you charge money for the loaning of money, you are committing a sin. And that is the only way that a real Christian society can exist, because without that kind of a barrier to creating money out of thin air, then the people that learn how to manipulate the system are going to end up on the top, and everybody else is going to start getting poorer and poorer. Now, let's see if Amber's back. Hi, Amber.
There she is.
Oh,
What?
I can't hear you. You're mute.
That's weird. Well, I'll just take a minute to tell you guys that I was named after Gone with the Wind and the land, and that Aaron's grandmother was named Liberty.
Nice.
There you go. I have a house across the street from me with big white columns, and its name is Tara as well. Besides Georgia and County Meath, Ireland. There you go.
And guess who I share a birthday with? Speaking of electricity, Tesla.
Really? That's a cool birthday. Very cool. I like it. Yeah. Well, I think electricity can be free too. It's when you can make a simple reaction that makes 200% more electricity, or 2,000%. Some of these reactions are amazing, and that changes everything. I mean, if we can get energy, so it's because that's been a huge control mechanism, just gigantic. But as much as usury, those two things go hand in hand, and we're at the cusp of something else now. If we can get there, it remains to be seen, but there's hope, at least. Yeah. I think more than things are disintegrating, those stories are, the truth is coming out, and it will set us free, because the answers already exist and have for so long, thousands of years, and it keeps sneaking back, but it's time to change it. A big step.
I think we're doing dismantling. And dismantling takes a lot of time. Yeah. And as much as we can see the goals that we have, what we're heading towards, it's like it's a process. And each step of the way, I think we just need to take a deep breath and say, "Whew, boy, we did come a long way,"
Came a
Oh,
long way, baby.
good advice.
No, we came a long way. All right. Well, ladies, I understand you have a show coming up that Amber mentioned. Tell us where we can see it and what time.
Well, that would be Neighborhood News Studio, and it is at, well, West Coast time is noon on Friday. East Coast time is 3 on Friday. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, noon and 3.
Mhm,
Noon on
yeah.
our side, 3 on your side. No,
So coming up in
3
a
on your
couple
side.
days. No, noon on my side. No, 9 on my side. Noon on your side. We're
And
all wrong
We
totally.
do make it. Somehow, we do make it.
Yeah, it's 9 to 11 West Coast, and so it's noon to 2. Isn't that right? Isn't
Yep,
that what you
East
guys
Coast,
do?
which is
Yeah,
both
okay.
of us.
We were.
Yep,
I was
yep.
totally wrong the first time. I always get flips around in my brain. Sorry
all right,
about
so
that.
that's is that a regular thing on Fridays now, or
Yeah,
just
that's a
Yeah,
regular thing.
well, the
regular?
channel now is, what is it? Citizens Research Road. No,
Um, yeah,
Yeah, let's
Citizen
give everybody the actual
Research
name.
Roadshow.
Research
Research Roadshow
Roadshow. Is that
5,
like
I think.
.com or what?
it's
It's
on YouTube too.
it's
Oh,
on
on
Citizens
YouTube.
Research. Yep,
Yeah.
Citizens Research Roadshow 5.
Hmm.
on YouTube.
On
Yep,
YouTube.
yep.
Yeah.
All right,
We've
Amber,
had
we're
to jump
sorry we
around,
didn't
you
get to
guys
hear
know.
your lovely voice for the last quarter hour, but we
Yeah.
enjoyed being with everyone and a lot of fun in the chat room going on there. I didn't say hello to everyone, but
Oh, I
hello
didn't get to see
everybody
the
in the
chat
chat.
room.
Hello people who are watching on Facebook and after the show. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys again soon. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you, John.
Good
Thank you,
night.
everybody. Eek, eek.